Once you have a rig created, you will of course have control items that allow you to interact with the rig, pose it, animate it, and so on. These have a pretty basic layout and colour coding. You have FK control items, by default here, dark blue. You have top level FK items such as the main root, here control is red. The same on IK goals, the top part of the IK goal is also coloured bright red there. You will also get secondary IK controls for some IK systems, which come in as dark red here. In the case of the leg here, that is the little additional ancillary foot controllers. And in the case of some IK parts, specifically legs and arms, you get an object called the IK actual, which is the actual goal item that the IK reaches for, but that is a child that is hooked into the main IK system itself. You also get handles that are available for various things, which are these little orange balls dotted around. And you may have intermediary roots within the rig itself, for instance a hips root item here, which is this small orange item there. Finally, for IK systems you have pole items, which are light blue in colour there, and of course draw lines back to the chain which they control. You see this same basic layout on all of the rig types, so here for the all bones rig, again all of the controllers are bone or joint items, there are no nulls, but you can see that you have the same basic coloration, and you have the same going on here in a nulls deform rig, with the exception of course that all of the items have item shapes and are based on nulls. What you will also see on null deform rigs are these little purple boxes at the joint positions themselves. These are second level controllers that allow you to manipulate the joints on top of the main animation rig. This is most useful if you need to perform a little joint correction to just counter twist something, or if you want to offset it ever so slightly for correcting a silhouette in a given pose. What is also available on all rigs are offset controllers. By default, when creating a rig, these are invisible, but you can show them using the animation toolbox switches here, just by clicking on offsets, and that will show and hide all of your offset controllers. Offset controllers are useful as they effectively provide a single animation layer that can work on top of the FK system itself. On standard IK systems like legs and arms, the FK offsets become ineffectual, but they do have effects on other parts, as we'll see when we look at the appropriate parts. And of course on main items, such as a root item here, you have an offset control on the main IK top item itself there, the IKG item. That also has an offset which carries the entire IK system with it as well. Which controls are visible by default will depend upon the control method that is selected for a certain part. For instance here the arms are in FK, so we see all of their FK controls there. The legs however are in IK, and so their FK controls are hidden away from us. They perform no function and thus are made invisible. But of course in the case of this nulls deform rig we can see that the IK is clearly functioning. It is of course not functioning on these deformed bones, rather it is functioning on control items which are present, just hidden. If we turn off the deformed bones there, and we'll just turn off the deformed control items and the offsets, then we can see which actual controllers are visible for controlling and posing the main rig like this. We see exactly the same thing here on the bone type rigs. Here of course we see that the leg bones are visible. In this case that is not because they are used for control, it is because they are deforming bones. If we turn off the deformed bone visibility and just turn on the controller visibility, then we can see that they are in fact hidden. If we hide everything, hide all the controls there, and just turn on bones, then the only bones that are visible in this instance are those which have a deformation effect upon the mesh, or rather those which should be used to have a deformation effect upon the mesh. Being a bones-based rig, if we turn on the offsets, for instance, we can see that the offsets themselves are bones, but by default they will be set to have 0 strength, and of course you would not want them to have strength. Else you would be getting a double deform when operating, say, the forearm FK and its offset like that, which you wouldn't be wanting. You might often find that for some rigs there are controls that you don't want to see. For instance, the foot system on a character, as we already pointed out, has these little ancillary controls here for the tiptoe and heel positions and also the IK actual. You might be satisfied for some simple animation uses just to be operating with the main foot goal there, and perhaps, let's say, the little reverse foot toggle that we can operate here. When you switch in and out of rig fit mode, or when you show and hide controls here on the animation toolbox, then these controls will come back to visibility by default even if you hide them. As such, one good way to make them permanently hidden is just to select those controls whom you do not wish to see when operating your rig, and using the rigging toolbox, set their shape choice to none. They are still present, they can still be used, but they are no longer seen by default as their shape is taken away. If you're using an all bone style rig, then it is much like the bone and null style rig. And here, if you are wishing to hide a control item completely, you could simply take its bone icon size and set it to 0. Again, notice that in the all bone rigs here, these extra items also have no strength. And we can isolate just the deforming, mesh affecting bones using the visibility controls in the animation toolbox like this. As such, it's very quick and easy to get to grips with the controls that have been generated for a rig and only see the ones that you want to be operating on. You can also, of course, quickly isolate different selections of those controls for performing different functions during animation or setup as needed. Most especially if you just want to see the deformed bones for very quickly going through them, assigning their weight maps, and so on.